Well, welcome to this CNBC Africa special interview with Nigeria's Minister for Budget and National Planning, Udoma. I'm Onyi Sunday, and we're going to be touching a bit on Nigeria's 2016 budget, the proposed 2017 budget, and also a look at the Nigerian Economic Summit theme, which is Made in Nigeria. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much.
Let's start off this way. The NESG 2016 theme says Made in Nigeria. What do you make of this theme?
You know, when we came into government a little less than a year ago, and given we realized that the Nigerian economy was totally dependent on one commodity, crude oil, and it was unsustainable. Particularly with the crude oil price going down, it started going down from 2014 when it was over $100, and it went down, and it was when we took over, it was $40-something. By January this year, it had gone down to below $30, and so it was clear to us that it was completely unsustainable to have a situation where we're dependent on a single commodity. And so we focused on diversification. We came in focused on diversification. And the main plan, the main way to diversify is to get our people to produce again, rather than consuming finished goods, producing goods in Nigeria. So we thought that it was very important to focus on the Made in Nigeria theme. So in the strategic implementation plan for the 2016 budget, which we launched, we'd set out our plans. One of the key deliverables, was to launch a Made in Nigeria campaign. The idea of Made in Nigeria campaign is to get Nigerians to produce more and then consume more of locally produced things. Our aim is to become self-sufficient in a number of items. For instance, agricultural produce like, food items like rice. We'd like to be self-sufficient by 2018. And we also would like to be self-sufficient in wheat by 2019. We identified those because those are items that we consume a lot. But we are looking at the all the various food items. We're looking at poultry. We're looking at cashew nuts. We're looking at cassava. In cassava, we believe that we can be the world's largest exporter of cassava. So we're looking at not just producing for local consumption, we're looking at also exporting. We're looking at cashew nuts. We're looking at peanuts. In granite, we used to have granite pyramids in Kano before. We want to try and go back to that. Indeed, Nigerian peanuts are some of the nicest peanuts in the world. I remember once I took some to the US when I was on a visit, and there was so much excitement about it because unlike the peanuts they were eating there, which you have to sprinkle salt on to have any flavor, Nigerian peanuts, you can take them without salt and they're very, very good. And so consequently, we're focusing on agriculture, focusing on manufacturing, focusing on solid minerals, and we feel that we should make Nigerians proud of their products. We know that we have quality issues, so we want to improve the quality of Nigerian products. So we believe that if we can achieve a situation where most of the things we consume are made in Nigeria, that we would have gone a long, long way to get us out of this dependence on a single commodity, to have a much more diversified economy.
Right. Now, Honourable Minister, as laudable as this, ideas and initiative does sound, when we talk about Made in Nigeria, of course, what comes to mind is the local manufacturing space. Now, this is a sector that has and continues, to experience its own myriad of challenges, over the years. My plan now, my question is, in view of the Made in Nigeria campaign, or should I call it the Made in Nigeria mantra, what is the plan of this administration in supporting local manufacturing?
Well, first of all, I think that the fundamental problem is that it's difficult to do business in Nigeria. So we want to make it easier to do business in Nigeria. We want to look at all the constraints, from ease of acquiring land, because if you want to build a factory, you need to get land. We want to try and ease acquiring land, and we're discussing with state governors about that. We want to look at ease of registering companies, and we're trying to fast track and make sure that companies registry moves quickly. We want to look at the ease of getting all approvals so that it's not so expensive. The ease of even paying your taxes, using technology, computerization, all those things, just to make life much easier. Most importantly, we are focusing on infrastructure. We want to look at power, road, transport infrastructure, rail infrastructure. Because if we can ease those things, we'll make manufacturing much easier. We'll make production so much easier. Which is why in the 2016 budget, we set aside 30% of the budget for capital. And we concentrated a lot on the power, works, and housing. That we put over 400 billion in the budget for power, works, and housing. Within the then over 200 billion, about 200 billion, I think, for transportation. So we're looking at the rail infrastructure. So we're planning a new railway from Lagos to Kano, in which we will provide counterpart funding. The Chinese, we're working with the Chinese. Another railway line from Calabar to Lagos. So those both railway lines were put in the budget. The counterpart funding were put in the budget. And in fact, I traveled to China to discuss those projects, with the Chinese government. We're also looking at our roads, getting most of our major roads repaired, fixed. We're also looking at concessioning some of those roads, tolling the roads to generate enough money. Because basically, even if we voted the whole of the 1.8 trillion that's for capital, for roads alone it wouldn't be sufficient, or for rail alone it wouldn't be sufficient. So we need the private sector. And that is why we're engaging so much with the private sector. That is why we're here at the Nigerian Economic Summit, working with the private sector, because we want the private sector to invest in infrastructure. We want them to invest in manufacturing. And we are assuring them that they will have the full support of government, and that any constraints that they have, they should let us know what those constraints are, so that we can remove the constraints and try and make it as easy as possible for people to produce.
All right, now Honourable Minister, the 2017 to 2019 MTEF and FSP, of course, articulates the federal government's economic, social, and developmental objectives, as well as strategies for achieving some of these defined objectives. Now, having listened to to the ideas the government has in store for the local manufacturing sector and the economy as a whole, there are those who say all ideas will amount to nothing if the power sector isn't sorted out. In fact, most manufacturers say, just give us power and watch how things play out. My question is, in this draft that you have submitted to the Senate, what plan is there? What's would I call it the short to medium term plan to address the power sector, as that is very key if we're really going to be driving this industrial revolution Nigeria looks forward to?
Okay, I can speak generally, but more specifically, you'll have to wait for the budget itself, the 2017 budget, which we're working on. Basically, as you know, the power sector has been deregulated and privatized. So indeed, anybody can generate power. Anybody can distribute power. And it is only the long-range transmission which the government is still involved in. And so it is an open terrain for people, and we're welcome, and we're inviting as many people as possible to invest in the power sector. But because we know that it's a long gestation period, we are also, as a government, investing in the power sector. We're looking at a number of projects. whilst not giving anything away about what will be in the 2017 budget. But there are projects such as the Mambila project, which is a hydroelectric, and such projects to generate power. Because a lot of our power projects are reliant on gas. And we realized that it was not wise to have it so reliant, almost 80-90% on gas. So we should also diversify to hydroelectric. We're looking at renewable energy. We're looking at all the possible sources of power. We're also looking at the whole tariff structure, to try and encourage investors to go into power.
Right then. And now, listening to Professor Doyin Salami yesterday, many would say he actually was the star of the day for, certain statements and certain facts that he presented at the opening of the summit. My question is, what do you make of Professor Doyin's call for a development roadmap? Does Nigeria currently have an economic plan, or do I say an economic roadmap?
Yes, we inherited one from the previous administration, the 2020, and we have been revising it. We've had a number of different plans, but we've been revising them. And when we came out with our short-term plan, a one-year plan, which was called the Strategic Implementation Plan. And we consulted extensively, including, I dare say, we consulted Professor Doyin Salami in putting together that plan. And we now are working on a more comprehensive plan, which will be ready by the end of the year. And we are consulting very extensively to try and put together a plan. But having said that, it is really putting it together in one piece. It's not as if there are no plans, because agriculture, we have a roadmap for agriculture, which was approved by the cabinet, launched, and the Minister of Agriculture has been talking about it. We have a solid minerals roadmap, which was approved by the cabinet, and the Minister of Solid Minerals has been also talking about it. We have a water resources plan, also approved by the cabinet. We'll be talking about it. We have an industrial plan. So we have the plans, but we're working on putting everything together in a single document to make it much easier for people to. But at the moment, anybody who wants to invest in Nigeria in any area, cannot. It's easy to establish, and we have it on our website and all that for each of these areas. So somebody who wants to invest in agriculture can check the Ministry of Agriculture website and see if the plan is there. If you want to invest in solid minerals, the plan is there. So the plans are available, the plans are accessible. Anybody who wants to invest can get to them. But we'll try and make it even easier for people. We'll put everything in a single document so that people don't have to go to the different ministries to establish the plan. So we're working on that.
Well, it's common knowledge that Nigerian government is never out of good ideas, even the private sector as it is. You just mentioned a number of plans in each sector of the economy. But then also listening to Professor Doyin yesterday as well at the opening of the conference, he called for what he says a convergence of policies. The question I want to ask is, how are these different ministries working together with the plans you've talked about? At the moment, presently, there are those who say, certain agencies, government agencies, that are working together in terms of bringing most of these regulations or the government's plans to a reality, and that's why we are where we are today. So when you talk about these plans, my question is, how well fused are these plans? How well fused are these ministries in ensuring that these plans become a reality? Well, that's a question I'd like you to answer just after the break. My discussion with Nigeria's Minister for Budget and National Planning continues right after this break. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching the CNBC special interview with Nigeria's Minister for Budget and National Planning. And of course, we were touching on issues around the 2016 budget, the proposed 2017 budget, and of course, the theme of ongoing Nigeria Economic Summit Made in Nigeria. Thank you so much for staying with us, Honorable Minister. And just before the break, I was going to asking how well the different ministries and agencies are working together to ensure that these plans you listed actually become a reality. Professor Doyin Salami, of course, at the opening of the NESG summit, called for a convergence of policies and regulations. What's your take on this?
Thank you very much. We have the economic management team, which is headed by His Excellency, the Vice President. We meet every Monday to review all activities, all economic activities. Before any plan, whether agriculture, whether solid minerals, before it goes to council for consideration, it comes to this body. We review it, and all the economic ministers are part of this body. And then we invite the relevant ministers to also participate. So we have a body that meets and coordinates and makes sure that all the plans fit into basically the strategic implementation plan, which is the document that all the plans take their lead from. So we have a strategic implementation plan, and every other plan is part of it. It flows from it. They're all consistent, with regard to. So basically, we do have coordination, very effective coordination, by the EMT, which is chaired by His Excellency, the Vice President. But I appreciate the area that they're talking about. They're really talking about fiscal and monetary policy. Those are the areas that people still have some concerns. I do concede that because the central bank has instrument autonomy, and so the central bank doesn't bring its policies to the EMT for consideration. So when the Monetary Policy Committee meets, it is not guided by the EMT. So they have instrument autonomy. So sometimes, even though we brief the governor of the central bank, and he's fully aware because he attends our meetings, he's fully aware of the EMT policy thrust, the government's policy thrust, but he doesn't bring those policies to the EMT.
Honourable Minister, isn't it about time for us to actually review this particular model? I mean, we are facing a very peculiar situation in Nigeria's economy today. Do we keep working with the old model?
Well, this is the situation that we are in, but we are working, even given the constraints, even though we're working to try and get a greater alignment between monetary and fiscal policy. But that is the reality on the ground, that may explain, so that is the area that people keep on raising. But the overall fiscal policy is aligned. The various agencies of government, the various ministries, all the ministers are aligned. We are still working on trying to get better alignment with fiscal policy, which is under the central bank. And we're working hard, and I think we're moving closer and closer together. Right
then. And let's touch a bit on the 2017 draft. Now, that budget proposal indicates an exchange rate of 290 naira to the dollar. Now, however, the official market rate is currently closer to about 319. Do you expect the naira to strengthen between now and next year?
Well, first of all, the MTEF is what you're referring to, because we haven't come out with our budget yet. At the time, the MTEF, which was about a month or two ago before we finalized it, that was the rate. And so when we're doing the budget, we will also look at it. But I think we believe that with the things that we are doing, for instance, I can reveal to you, even though the figures are not officially out, that the third quarter suggests an increase in agricultural output, a further increase in agricultural output. So some of those policies are beginning to work. So the issue is foreign exchange availability. If we can get all these campaigns made in Nigeria, campaigns, all those things working, and we get more FX availability, we believe that the naira, could firm up, and that is what we would like to achieve. But
interesting, because the local manufacturers actually want the FX in order to make the made in Nigeria become a reality. They're stuck at the moment. So which do we put first?
Yes, we need to get FX, but we need to do the two. We need to get, as we get more FX, they can produce more and we get even more FX. But they have to look at the export market. They have to. I think import substitution alone will not achieve our objectives. We also need export promotion. So we need to target exports. We need to look at, and we have been talking already with the Chinese and other companies who are willing to come to Nigeria and start producing. For instance, the same Chinese companies that are producing very high quality leather goods, leather shoes and all that in Ethiopia, some of them are willing to also come here. So if we get many of these companies coming and producing for export, the turnaround could be very, very rapid. And it is, so basically, what you can get more foreign currency, the naira will stabilize.
All right, then. Now, still sticking to that draft, many suggest that the 2017 draft budget oil production target of at 2.2 million barrels per day is unrealistic, given the relatively low production levels today. Now, my question is, why do you think this target is realistic? Or do you even think it's realistic?
It is. It certainly is realistic. We have the capacity to produce 2.2 and more than 2.2. We have the capacity. The reason we didn't achieve it this year was not a capacity issue. We could have this year produced an average of 2.2, but for the disruptions. And the disruptions, we are working on containing those disruptions.
All right, now of course, revenue collection in the first half of this year is at 55%. I mean, this is, of course, what implication? This is, it falls short of what the government anticipated in the first place. What's the implication for this year's spending plan, and how do you plan to fill the gap in this revenue shortfall?
Well, we're looking at various ways of filling the gap, but even if we had all the money, I don't think we could spend the full 1.8 trillion by the end of this year. We're already in October. So even if we had all the money, we can't. What we want to do is basically to focus on 2017. That is going to be our turnaround year. We will try and raise as much money as we can. For this year, we're looking at getting $1 billion from the ADB. We're hoping we'll get that this month. The president of the ADB was here last month, and he promised that he's going to his board this month. We're also looking at raising money from the World Bank. We're also looking at a Eurobond issue for another $1 billion. And so all these funds coming in will do a number of things. One is will help to prop up the availability of dollars, which can be used by industry, prop up the naira, and help us to fund our capital budget.
Now, how do we plan to fund the 2017 budget, though?
The 2017 budget, basically, from revenues, we hope that between now and then we do have a plan for containing the Niger Delta issues, so that from the beginning of January, we hope that we will be, going full blast at 2.2 million barrels. So we'll get from oil. We'll also get from non-oil. Once the FX issues, we have more FX, you will see that the customs revenue will go up. FIRS, taxes will also, as people are producing more, will also go up. As it is, what our target and what we plan to do in terms of tax collection is not to raise the rates, because at this time, we really should be having a reflationary approach and not trying to, so we're not raising the rate. But we want those who are liable to pay tax to pay their taxes. So we're spreading the net, broadening it. we already have 700,000 additional companies that have been identified. And so even if all of them pay just a small amount of money, that is a huge increase in revenue. 700,000 companies which we didn't have on our records before.
No, but do we see borrowing in the mix for 2017?
Oh, yes, definitely, because we expect to have a deficit in 2017 of about 2.6 trillion. So we will have a borrowing. But what we want to do is that we want to move away from short-term to longer-term borrowing. So right now, I want to bring down our short-term borrowing, which is about 31% of our borrowing, to about 25%.
But what's our current debt profile at the moment? What's Nigeria's current debt profile?
The overall, this thing is about 16.3 trillion. That's the total federal and state, 16.3 trillion.
How are we addressing this?
Basically, it's going to come down over time. If you look at the MTEF, basically, as we're shifting some of the local to foreign. You know, the foreign loans are concessionary, the interest rates are much lower. We're also changing from, as I said, from short term to longer term. And by 2018, from the MTEF, our level of borrowing is going to start to go down. But we needed to have a high level of borrowing for 2017 because we need to reflate the budget. We need to build the roads. We need to build the rail. We need to build the infrastructure. That infrastructure will give us the capacity to pay back the loan.
I've been speaking with Nigeria's Minister for Budget and National Planning, Udoma. That's it on this CNBC Africa special. I'm Onyi Sunday. Thank you so much for watching.